What is up, guys? This is QM from the Trinity of Lift, and today I'm going to bring all of you guys my Madolche deck profile post Breakers of Shadow. Now, I decided to update this deck again for this new format with all of the new cards that we did just get in Breakers of Shadow. And I will say, based on how the rank 4 pool of monsters has expanded to pretty incredible lengths, I really decided to try and put a little bit more emphasis on the rank 4s in this Madolche deck when compared to the older list that I used to make, where it would just more or less be oriented towards comboing into an OTK board or comboing into your TR Misu. So without further ado, we're just going to jump right into this deck profile. So we're going to start off with the Madolche lineup as per usual, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because it's basically the exact same Madolche lineup that you guys have seen in almost all of my other brilliant Madolche videos. So yeah, we're going to have 3 copies of the Angeli, then we're going to have 3 copies of the Madolche, then also 3 copies of Hoot Cake, 2 copies of Messin Gelato. Then the one little discrepancy in the Madolche lineup is I'm only running 1 copy of Mufway, simply because you never want to draw this anymore, because you want to focus on your rank 4s a lot more than actually using the Mufway to get into your rank 3s. So because of that, I decided to cut Mufway down to 1 again, because like I said, you really want to try and get into your rank 4s because of just how strong they are now this format. So that is why I decided to cut down 1 Mufway for other cards in the deck. And then of course, finally, for the last Madolche, we are running the 1 Pudding Cess because Choco Pudding Cess is still really good. So yeah, that'll be the entire Madolche lineup for this deck. Moving on to our performance cards that we are running to help us support our Brilliant Fusion. We're going to start off with, of course, with the 3 copies of Damage Juggler. Being able to negate Wavering Eyes and all that kind of stuff and to help prevent OTKs is always really nice. So we have 3 of that. Then we also have 1 copy of the Performance Trick Clown because you don't want to draw into this. It's good to send off of things like your Foolish Burial or your Brilliant Fusion if you need to, just to have the option of getting another level 4 off of your sending effects. So that is why we still run the 1 copy of Trick Clown. And then for the last Performance, I'm also deciding to run 3 copies of Performance Hat Tricker. Again, like I've said, you really want to get into your rank 4s because Cyber Dragon Infinity and Traptrix Rafflesia are really powerful this format. And because of that, I felt like having 3 copies of Hat Tricker was actually a pretty sound idea, because Madolches don't naturally go into their rank 4s unless they're actually comboing through it with things like your Mufway and your Angeli together. So I put in 3 Hat Trickers simply because you actually want to draw this so that you can turn in a lot of your level 4s. You can turn them into your rank 4s, which can again really help you make those very strong lockdown boards turn 1, which include things like Cyber Dragon Infinity and again Traptrix Rafflesia. So again, that is why we have 3 copies of the Performance Hat Tricker. Then, moving on, we have our other generic monsters that we need to help us support our other cards in the deck. We have 1 copy of Gem Knight Garnet for our Brilliant Fusions. We also have 1 copy of Glow Up Bulb to help us get into Naturia Beast faster. Then, finally, for the last couple of monsters, I'm running 2 copies of Effect Veiler because Effect Veiling a Skullcrobat Joker or an Edia the Heavenly Knight or Squire or whatever the heck it's called in the TCG is always really strong. So yeah, that will round us off of our entire monster lineup. Moving on to our spells, we go into the Madolche spells first, of course, with the 1 ticket and 1 shout tell that I am very much going to stick by with this ratio basically forever until I find a very good reason to change this ratio. But until then, we are still running 1 copy of each spell card. Then moving on, we have the Fusion spell cards, which is going to be 3 copies of the Brilliant Fusion and then 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Now, you really, like, I cannot emphasize enough that you need to maximize on all of these Fusion cards, simply because, again, they both promote rank 4s immediately, and I basically geared this deck to try and go first as much as possible, and during those turn 1s, I'm looking to try and set up a board where you basically cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh! At event. You basically will have to scoop if I can make my decent board turn 1. Again, this is following the mentality that your turn 1s will either make or break the game, and depending on how well you can open, that will basically determine how the game will go in future turns. So because of that, again, I really feel that these guys are essential just because they're spell cards, so they're a lot faster than traps, and again, these guys will be able to get you into instant Rafflesias or instant Cyber Dragon Infinities. So again, these cards are pretty darn necessary at 3 apiece in my opinion. Moving on to the other spells, we have 1 copy of Foolish Burial as well as 1 copy of 1 for 1. Now, these guys are basically here to make the Naturia Beast plays a little bit more consistent, as these both function as basically more copies of Glow Up Bulb. The Foolish Burial is obviously self-explanatory because, again, it gets Glow Up Bulb into the grave, but it also helps you toolbox your performages a little bit better. And then we also have the 1 for 1, again, because if you do draw your performages, it's good to be able to ditch them off of this card and then get the Glow Up Bulb through that way. I also will mention that there are some really weird plays and some weird instances when you actually draw the glow up bulb plus 1-for-1, and whenever you run into that situation, you actually can possibly use the 1-for-1 to ditch a glow up bulb and then summon effect failure from your deck. So I mean, it's an interaction that won't come up a lot for 1-for-1, but it's there if you run into that weird situation where that's a thing. So yeah, that will be it for our Naturia Beast enablers. And then moving on to the generic spells, I am maining 2 copies of Twin Twister again because we are drawing a couple of cards in this deck where we don't want them in our hand, that we want them into our graveyard. So having Twin Twister in here to act as a discard outlet for our Performages as well as our Glow Up Bulb is really helpful. And again, Twin Twister is just really strong in this format for Pendulum Scales and whatnot. And then finally, for the last 3 spell cards, of course I'm running the 3 obligatory Upstart Goblins because I love me my 37 card consistency. So yeah, that'll be it for the entire spell lineup. And then for the single trap I decided to run 1 copy of Traptrix Trap Hole, obviously for the Rafflesia play. Now, I will say this as a preface that I do mainboard Treacherous, excuse me if I can say it correctly. I do main the 1 Treacherous, but depending on what situation I'm in, I also will change this out for a time space trap hole in games 2 and 3 if I am indeed feeling that that is going to be a little bit more important in the Cosmo matchup or the the Performage and Pals matchup. So again, this is really just basically whatever trap hole you feel is the most necessary. I feel like Treacherous is probably the best one for me because Madolches will automatically lose to Monarchs if they can set up a domain first turn. So you really want to have a way to out their tribute summons and out their tribute fodder immediately. So that's why I do have the Treacherous in here instead of something like Time Space and whatnot. So yeah, that will round us off of our entire 40 card main deck. Moving on to our extra deck, which is where it gets a little bit weird. I'm going to start off with 1 copy of Madolche Queen Tiramisu, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm only running 1 of this card. Like, it pains me to say, but I could not find the space for a second copy of Tiramisu simply because during testing I found that anytime you'd need the second copy of her, you're basically in a position where you should be losing, or it's gonna be like you're already supposed to win and you don't need the second copy. So I really just felt that the second copy was unnecessary. And as of course, whenever you do resolve her effect 1 time even, you should be usually in a good enough spot where you can just win during that turn. So I really again just did not feel that the second copy was necessary, and I really wanted to allocate that second spot where the second Tiramisu would have been to a different rank 4. So yeah, we have the 1 copy of Madolche Queen Tiramisu. Then, of course, I'm also running the 1 copy of Levier just in case we ever need this to go into our Tiramisu play. But majority of the time, I'm actually finding myself using Levier's effect to grab banished Nordins that were banished off of Ucake's effect to get another rank 4 body onto the board. So again, Levier is in here for those kooky interactions that it does have with some cards that we do banish in this deck. So again, we have the 1 copy of Levier. And then for the other Madolche Xyz monster I am running the 1 copy of Pudding Sis Chocolate a la mode because again we are running the regular Pudding Sis in this deck so that we can overlay the Pudding Sis plus the Seraph Knight in our extra deck to make this, because again this card is pretty darn strong. So yeah, that'll be it for the more or less Madolche specific Xyz monsters. Moving on to the more generic ones, we start off with 1 copy of Performance Trapeze Magician because of course this is needed for your OTKs. Then we have the entire suit of Cyber Dragon cards, or Cyber Dragon-esque cards. We have the 1 copy of Ptolemaeus, we have the 1 Nova and the 1 Infinity again, because this card is going to be really strong if you can back this card during your turn 1 with a Naturia Beast or a Rafflesia. So again, we have the Infinity in here because again, it's an option for rank 4 decks. So again, because it is, we should be running it. So yeah, we have the Infinity suit of cards. Then, speaking of Rafflesia, we have the 1 copy of Traptrix Rafflesia because most of the time you'll be trying to make this turn 1 as much as you possibly can, because during this, if you make this turn 1, your opponent will have to make really weird plays to get around it, because otherwise they're going to be negging themselves really hard if they don't address the Rafflesia instantly. So again, it's a really cool card because honestly, it can stop a lot of your opponent's plays, and it's just such a good card turn 1. I also really like the artwork, I'm not going to lie, I really like the way this card looks as well. So yeah, we have the Traptrix Rafflesia. Then we also have 1 copy of Melee of the Trees, again to just get the Naturia Beast plays to be a little bit more consistent. Then we have 1 copy of Diamond Dire for spot removal of back row and spot removal of Pendulum Scales. And we have the 1 Castell to round off our final rank 4. Moving on to the other cards in our extra deck, we of course have the 1 copy of Naturia Beast because this card can win you games if you do back it up very similarly to Cyber Dragon Infinity. So of course we have the 1 Naturia Beast. And then for our fusions, of course, we have the 2 copies of Elder Entity Norden and the 1 copy of Gem Knight Seraphonite. Now, I'm actually going to touch up on it here. I know that I only have 1 copy of Gem Knight Garnet and 1 copy of Gem Knight Seraphonite to basically resolve 3 different copies of Brilliant Fusion. But the simple fact is that you just want to see the Brilliant Fusion as much as you can. And you only basically have to resolve 1 of them to be able to win the game. And if you ever do run into the situation where you draw your 1 Gem Knight Garnet and your 1 Brilliant Fusion, you're supposed to basically lose anyway. So basically I opted to just have a little bit more of a consistent engine and basically have an auto lose if I do draw that engine bad. And outside of that, again, that's why I only am running the 1 Seraphonite and the 1 Garnet. So yeah, that'll be the entire 15 card extra deck. And of course, to show off the tokens in my extra deck, or excuse me, the ones that I keep in my deck box now, because I mean that rule had to come out. So yeah, we have the 3 tokens that I like to keep at the bottom of my extra deck and whatnot. So yeah, that'll be it for my entire Madolche deck profile for this Post Breakers of Shadow format. Again, I am still tweaking this deck a little bit off and on, just because I really do love to play this deck as much as I can. And again, just based on how big the rank 4 pool has gotten and how much better it has been, just because of Cyber Dragon Infinity and Rafflesia's release, I just really feel that this way to play Madolches is probably, again, the best way, because you can accentuate your rank 4s and make them probably your go-to plays to in order to lock down your opponent and to make sure that they cannot play Yu-Gi-Oh. So yeah, again, I hope you all very much did enjoy this video, and as usual, this is QRem from the Trinity of Lift, and I'll see all of you guys later. Peace out.